Today I wanted to talk to you guys about one belief that I think is absolutely essential for success in entrepreneurship. So I've been listening to Alex Hormozi's channel a lot over the last couple of weeks, and something that he says is this idea that your success in entrepreneurship is kind of based off these three factors. You have your beliefs, your characteristics, and kind of in the middle, almost like a ladder, are your hard skills. You know, how high up you're able to climb the ladder is dependent on, how your beliefs, your characteristics, and your hard skills line up. And I found that to be very, very true with the level of success that I've achieved. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the beliefs, and in particular, one belief that I think is absolutely essential for success in entrepreneurship. So before we get into this, I think it's really important to examine, what exactly is a belief? So as far as I've gotten with it, a belief, or in this framework of beliefs, characteristics, and skills, beliefs can kind of be described as beliefs in things that aren't really objectively true or false, and then also a certain understanding, and the understanding can be for things that are absolutely true. So for example, one belief / understanding, in this case it's more of an understanding that's going to be really helpful, is this idea of abundance. Really understanding what is abundance, what's the nature of abundance, how abundance is in actuality apparent and existent in this universe. So that understanding is really, really helpful, especially as you approach entrepreneurship. But there's other beliefs that are really important as well. Things like, what do I deserve? Again, this is something that maybe is a little bit more subjective. What don't I deserve? Or a belief around, I'm good enough, or I'm enough for something. These are things that hold a lot of people back. A couple of years ago, I read this book, and I've noticed that my understanding, or rather my belief from this book, it really is carried over into a lot of different areas, especially with business. And that book is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. In the book, Jocko talks about how he's in the special forces, and there's a battle in Iraq, and I'm paraphrasing here, but basically in the battle, there is a lot of confusion, and what winds up happening is one division of the Special Forces is firing upon another division of the Special Forces, something I guess they call blue on blue, which is like the worst possible thing that could possibly, that could happen, the worst thing, worst scenario that you want to see in battle. And so after this happened, there was a huge meeting, higher ups were called down, and the question was, who is responsible for this? Who is at fault? And there was a meeting, and all these people were there, and the higher ups are asking, who's at fault? And Jocko raises his hand, and he says, well, it's my fault because, I didn't make sure that the teams were communicating correctly. And then somebody else in the room raised his hand, and he said, no, it's actually my fault. I was the one who fired first. And then another person raised his hand and said, no, it was my fault because I didn't check the map at this certain level. And you guys kind of get this idea that everybody was taking responsibility, even though, you could probably argue that no one person was responsible. And the fact that leadership stood up to have this, to take ownership, it actually resulted in this cascading effect where everybody on the team took ownership themselves. And that was, an amazing, that was a really amazing and a very powerful culture to create within the teams. So I'm gonna give you guys a couple of examples of how I've used extreme ownership to help me improve my business. And this is a belief that it kind of stems off of this other understanding, which is that all feedback is good. So if you think about it, it doesn't matter if you can test the extremes over here. If you do something and the feedback from whatever action you took is extremely negative, it's a horrific result. Like this example of the blue on blue, the feedback for that can be good in the situation where, you guys can learn how to overcome it. And if you test the other extreme of something where it's just, a minor error, again, that feedback is good as well. Or on the complete opposite side, something goes really positive, really, really well on positive feedback, you can take a lesson there also. The understanding is that there's lessons in feedback. Those lessons are opportunities to grow. And, one of the ways that you can get the most out of the lesson is by having this frame of extreme ownership, of everything always, kind of being your fault, good, bad, indifferent. So an example is, you may have a client or a customer and that person is upset. So as the business owner, you can take the frame that, it's my fault that this client is upset if you're working one-on-one with them because I didn't set the right expectations, I didn't have the right communication, or I actually made a mistake, in which case, by taking ownership, you're in a powerful position to learn. Same thing is if a team member makes a mistake. So, this happens all the time where, something happens in the business, there's some team member who maybe said something or didn't emphasize something enough to a client. And the way that it's always approached is that, well, as a business owner, this is my fault because I didn't set up the procedures. I didn't set up the training that would have let this team member know exactly what to do. When I was very early on in my career, I learned how the money that you make is directly correlated with the value you provide to the marketplace. And since at the time I wasn't making any money, I correctly concluded that the problem was that I didn't have the skills required to add value to the marketplace. And so by taking ownership of that, I was able then to go out there and acquire those skills. And if you look at it from like a macro level, you can look at your business and say, now that we're doing, a lot better, I can say, okay, well, my business is doing about $2 million a year. Why is it not doing $20 million a year? And that answer, again, is, it falls upon the leadership. And as leader, I'm taking ownership of, we are at the place we're at because of the skills that I have, or, again, the beliefs and the characteristics. So this book, Extreme Ownership, not only is it very, very powerful from the lessons that you can take away from it and the beliefs, the understanding that you can take away from it, it's also super entertaining. I listened to it as an audiobook and I loved how they went back and forth from going from like war stories to business lessons. So that was amazing. I'd highly recommend you guys check that out. And also, take a look right now, take an inventory of, where are you experiencing pain? Where are you experiencing struggle and difficulty? And look at that and say like, well, where can I take responsibility here? This works in business, but it's also personally affected me with the relationships in my life. Because, I can look at the relationships with the important people in my life and say, well, this relationship isn't going where I want it to be, but let me take 100% responsibility. And what does that mean? 100% responsibility might mean, being the first person to apologize. Taking 100% responsibility might mean setting up the right boundaries within that relationship to ensure that things go in the direction that you want it to go in. When you are seeing that struggle, examine to see where you can take ownership, and standing in that place, what do you see and how can you be powerful from that place?